Okay, here we go. So the Supreme Court um, arguments on transgender health care ban conservatives skeptical. Well, Tennessee passed a ban on trans health care for minors. And so the Supreme Court apparently is likely to uphold Tennessee. Um, so I was reading this article, and by the way, I really like this guy's sign with the black outlining and the colored diagonal lines. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. I noticed it was kind of cool. Irrelevant, probably. I know. Sorry, but I like the guy's sign. All right. Um. So while I'm reading this article, I'm scrolling down, and there's related coverage. LPGA and USGA to require players to be assigned at female at birth or transition before male puberty. They didn't mention whether all players or just female players. Can male players be assigned female at birth be allowed to play too? Okay, probably not. Um, my question is, if trans healthcare is banned for minors, how can you transition before male puberty? Now, I know these two stories are the left hand and the right hand, and neither knows what they're doing on the other side. But this is just a symptom of the whole problem. The Supreme Court wants to defer to the states and say, yeah, we're just going to let the states decide. That's all fine and well if you live in a state that allows trans health care for minors. And if you don't think trans care for minors is needed, and you think that trans kids are getting health care that's a risk to them, do you think their suicide is a risk? You don't think, this is the problem with people who haven't been educated about all the ins and outs of being trans. Oh, well, surely they won't commit suicide if they don't get allowed to transition or change their pronouns or change their hair or get accepted by society. You know, you don't know what's going to make somebody commit suicide. If society treats you like shit, regardless of whether you can get trans health care, because we just don't like trans people, or trans people is a disease or something, it's not even going to matter. Society just decided to treat you like shit, and you can't think of a way to live in society without being treated like shit. Maybe the only way out for you is suicide. Now, if you're somebody out there who's considered suicide, don't make a mistake in thinking that I'm advocating that you commit suicide. We love you and need you. We don't want people to commit suicide. And if you're a conservative people who doesn't think somebody is going to commit suicide because of the way society treats them, you're wrong. You should have compassion for people who feel so badly that they need to commit suicide. If you just feel a little icky because trans people exist, you're not going to commit suicide. Your problem is nowhere near as bad as their problem. And trying to eliminate them is not going to prevent them from committing suicide. So, when you see these two conflicting stories, here is the Supreme Court probably upholding Tennessee's ban on transgender for minors. And then the LPGA has decided that, and just by the way, and the USGA, and why do they get a fucking say? Can't the LPGA make up their own rules without consulting the USGA? Seems like they ought to be able to. Anyway, you can see the problem with these two conflicting stories. The LPGA thinks that you should be assigned female at birth or transition before male puberty. But you can't do that because Tennessee has outlawed health care for minors. Now, I don't know how much you folks know about puberty, but I figure even you well undereducated folks know that you're going to probably hit puberty before you're 18. Now, there might be a few people that don't. But the vast majority of us hit puberty before 18. And half of us are male. And some of us are trans women who do not want to undergo male puberty. And they're probably going to be faced with male puberty before they turn 18. So they need at least hormone blockers so they can avoid a precocious puberty. Now, cis people are allowed to have this health care without question. Or at least without interference from the government. They're decided between the child and their parent and their doctor. But if you're trans, you have less rights than a cis person who's a minor. A cis person who's a minor can get hormone blockers to prevent a precocious puberty, but not a trans person. Why don't these trans people have equal rights? It's the same problem with abortion. You're not allowing women to decide what they can do with their own bodies. Should be between the woman or the uterus owner, whichever the case may be. That might be a trans man. But if they have a uterus and they're pregnant and they need to make a choice, it should be between them and their doctor, not the government. If you don't want to have an abortion, that's fine. Don't have one. But if it's your body, you should be the one to make a choice. I'm sick of hearing all of this, well, we got to protect the babies. Well, they're not babies. We don't grant personhood till you're born. We don't know if you're going to be born. You might have encephalitis. Is that the right word? You might be born without a brain. And then you're going to die. And you're not going to have personhood. Well, you'll have personhood long enough to be buried or cremated or whatever. It'd probably be best if you just don't suffer. We just end the pregnancy if we find out you don't have a brain. There's no point. Or in the case of fetuses that could be born without kidneys or livers or something like that, they're just going to suffer until they die because they're not going to live. But anyway, this was supposed to be a video about trans health care being denied by the Supreme Court and Tennessee. So I just wanted to emphasize how human rights are not negotiable. We should all have human rights. We should all be treated equally. And this is not doing it. It's not being done by golf associations. It's not being done by courts. It needs to change. Call your congressman. Write your congressman. Complain about it. Start a lawsuit if you can afford it. We need a lot more lawsuits for human rights. And that actually brings me over to another subject that, and I probably should just do a whole video about this, but if I can remember what I was going to say. Well, maybe it will be a video when I can remember what it was. Okay, love you, bye.